Hey, John here. Welcome to Chief or Yourself. Good to have you with us wherever you are in the world today. The show exists to help you live life from a genuine place, maintaining positive energies, good chi, if you will. Our guest today makes a return visit. Marc Allen is an author, composer, seminar leader. He's the co-founder of New World Library, and he's a guy who has put universal law on his side to create a life of great abundance. Marc's new book is called Magical Path, Creating the Life of Your Dreams and a World that Works for All. Marc, welcome to Achieve for Yourself. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me on.
We hear the word magic and we tend to think of sleight of hand or mysterious trickery, show business-y kind of stuff. What kind of magic are we talking about in the magical path?
I'm talking about real magic. That's what's always fascinated me. I've always known stage magic is a bunch of tricks, but there is real magic. I've been fascinated with it since I was a child and started reading voraciously about it in my early 20s. Well, not voraciously. I'm actually lazy and unorganized, so I made a very intuitive and lazy study of Western magic in my early 20s, of real magic. Many people have negative connotations with the word. I say you can pick another word. You can pick creation if you want. Something created all this stuff out of nothing. You can call it physics and chemistry if you want. Whatever it is, there are ways to align ourselves with the creative forces of the universe and really make substantial changes in our lives and in our world. I call that magic. You can call it anything you want.
And it doesn't require sweat and strain. This is not a bust your butt kind of a process, as some of us were taught to believe is the way to move along in life.
Right. I'm actually very undisciplined. I finally, by the time I was in my early 30s, came to really accept myself and realize I'm lazy. I'm undisciplined. I don't do mornings. I never was a morning person. Any discipline that requires a daily anything has never lasted long in my life. You know, every New Year's resolution I made through my 20s, if I said I'd like exercise every day, which I tried a few times, I might exercise the next day, but I probably wouldn't, and I just don't do anything on a regular basis. So I had to develop tools that worked for people as lazy and indisciplined as I am.
Well, you did struggle through your college years, as you mentioned in the book, and then you happened upon yoga and meditation. Those help you carve out your own magical path. Where exactly did yoga and meditation take you in the way of discovery?
Yeah, when I left college, I was in the worst health of my life. I'd done way too much crystal methadone in college for my studies, and so I had also these periods of depression. I look back now, what goes up must come down. You know, I was a mess physically, emotionally, and mentally even. And then I got into this theater company. I had one important piece of the puzzle, I think from birth or early on. I knew it was important to do what I loved. I did not listen to my father saying I should go into business. I had no interest in business. I wanted to be in theater and music, and I had a band, and I got into a theater company right out of college. And the theater company started doing yoga as a physical discipline. We did yoga and gymnastics because they thought that was the best combination. It was a very physical theater. And our yoga classes, the teacher was this man from India, Professor Arya, and he obviously valued meditation way more than the physical yoga. So he kept shortening the physical yoga and lengthening the meditation at the end. And he did one meditative thing with us early on, I remember, called closing the gates, where we just sat comfortably and then took a deep breath and then put our thumbs in our ears, blocking out sound, put our index fingers over our eyes, and squeezed our nose shut and our mouth shut with our other three fingers. And I'll never forget it. This is obvious to anyone who meditates, but I was plunged into this inner space, and I realized, oh, our inner space is just as vast as outer space. We have a whole world within that I had been completely oblivious to. It's really the world of our thoughts, the world of our imagination. And it turns out that's the world where we can create, in our imagination, the life we want. So that's where we dream, of course.
It's inside work that's being manifested on the outside, basically.
Right, right. That's where it all begins. In a way, it's all simple and obvious. Everything created in the world began with an idea, a thought. And it obviously became a focused thought that somebody or something kept focused on before it was made manifest in reality.
In the book, you list some different names that people use for real magic. One of those is intelligent design. What do you say to someone from the intelligent design community who insists that intelligent design is pretty much all there is, and these other concepts of science and physics and what have you really don't come into play?
I think all these arguments are ridiculous myself, because we get tied up in semantics. We get tied up in words, you know. Everybody believes that something created all this, something or someone, and we try to put labels on it, and then we argue with someone else saying, your label is different from my label. You know, I call it God. Well, no, I don't call it God. I'm an atheist. I call it physics and chemistry. And I think it's ridiculous, because we all believe in something. We all believe some force created what is. And the people, I think there is an intelligent design, obviously, behind everything. I mean, the shell, the swirls of a snail shell and the swirls of a galaxy have an exact mathematical formula. That certainly shows an intelligent design. I think you get hung up on words. Call it what you will. I remember when I was 15, I saw Hamlet, and it really affected me deeply. The one phrase affected me. Near the end, when Hamlet says to Horatio, "There's far more in heaven and earth than is dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio." I remember saying, yes, that's totally true. It's true for me. It's true for all of us. There is far more in heaven and earth than we can even conceive. There are great mysteries of creation, of birth and death and life, and we can't understand it all in our physical bodies here. We can't understand what happened before our birth or after our death. But I know it's way beyond, you know, what we can comprehend, and I know it's an eternal mystery. So I think it's good to just be open-minded. I think the result for me was feeling, I don't understand any of this, but I'll try anything. I'll try prayer. I'll try affirmation. I'll try all kinds of things. I'll try strategic planning. If you want to be more scientific and more business-oriented, I'll try anything, because I want to change my life. I was a struggling poverty case. And the day I turned 30, I woke up in a state of shock. I had no job. I had no money at all. It was sort of cool through my 20s to be a poverty case. But when I turned 30, just this voice said, you're not a kid anymore. It's time to get serious and get focused on what you want to do.
Our culture is pretty much saturated in fear. You know, Amber Alerts, color-coded terror threats, and things like that. Not to mention the possibility of job loss and financial ruin. If my life seems to be spinning out of control, but I'm frozen in fear at the thought of taking action, I can pick from a lot of fears to use as excuses that I might throw in money scarcity too. Now, that's a tough 1-2 punch. When someone puts up that kind of resistance to you, what do you suggest to them?
You know, just about every philosophy I've ever heard of, definitely all the Eastern philosophies, but even Abraham Maslow in the West and many others, talk about levels of human consciousness. And even the 7 chakras of the East, go through 7 main levels of human consciousness. And I say to people that are dominated in fear, as long as you are dominated by fear, the decisions you make and the choices you seem to have are really limited, and you make bad decisions. Any strategic plan that comes out of fear, any plan whatsoever, is not a good plan. You have to get into a higher level of consciousness. Einstein said it. Einstein said it beautifully. He said the level of thinking that caused our problems is not where we find the solution to the problems. We literally need to go to a higher level of thinking. What's that higher level? Our higher levels of consciousness go above fear and get into our own passion for what we want to do, and basically into love. I think the Course in Miracles summed it up exactly right in very simple terms. We have a choice between love or fear every moment. Those are the 2 main dominant emotions. When we're in fear, our whole world is frustrating. We're overwhelmed with anger, jealousy, all kinds of so-called lower emotions. We get ulcers. It's bad for our bodies. When we get up into love, when we can open our hearts, when we can just accept what is, like The Power of Now, I love that book so much. Over and over, he says the key is just give up our resistance to what is. To offer no resistance to life, he says, is to be in a state of grace, ease, and lightness. That's it. When we give up our resistance to what is and really accept what is, we can finally move into loving what is. When we learn to love ourselves, as much as we love an infant, say, if you've been lucky enough to have a child, you know this, or even if you haven't had a child, when you just gaze into the eyes of a newborn infant, you will have an experience of the wonder of what is. And that infant, you can just see, is just radiating love and light. That's the state of consciousness where we can solve our problems, where we can solve global problems. That's the answer. Love is the answer. Fear is the problem.
For all of our material wealth, the country doesn't place very highly in the World Happiness Index with all the gadgets and stuff. Why do so many of us have unfulfilled lives? Is it the love situation again, the love problem?
I think so. I think it all gets back to fear. We're unfulfilled because we fear failure, or if we get past our fear of failure, we start fearing success. We fear so many things. I spent much of my 20s, I would say, in a consciousness dominated by fear. I feared my own anxiety. I feared my own depressions. I was in fear of emotions that just seemed to overwhelm me. I was afraid of my own emotional states. Fortunately, through my 20s, I did stumble into a Zen center. I did find some meditation, and I did some seminars that, when I look back, turned out to be effective therapy. I got into Buddhism. Buddhism isn't even a religion, really. It's an effective therapy. It's a great practical philosophy. In Buddha's first talk, he said there's 4 great truths. One is life is a bitch and then you die, is the way I saw it translated on a t-shirt somebody had. Life is suffering. Life is painful. It's tough. It's not an easy choice to make, to have this physical body, and that's all true. And on one level, our fears are all valid. Life is painful and we're all going to die. That's all true. But he said, fortunately, there's other great truths. And another great truth is that there is a state of mind and a state of being that's completely beyond suffering. There is a place we can reach if we give up our resistance to what is. If we quit fighting the universe and learn to accept and love what is, we can reach a place where we are no longer suffering.
When the inevitable challenges crop up, let's say in a business setting, I want to look at how to approach those. I know you're not a 40-hour, 50, 60-hour week guy. You take your work nice and easy. It's kind of the law of least effort. Is it better to, let's say, do more with less? Can we do that in business?
Definitely. Work smarter, not harder was my mantra for years. I pondered, what does that phrase really mean? Work smarter, not harder. I knew there was a brilliance to that phrase. And within there it is, hard work itself is not necessarily the answer. We were all conditioned by a type A workaholic society that values hard work. And I mean, I've met these people doing 60-hour work weeks, and many of them are proud of it, although they burn out and they have no time for their family or friends or anything really important in life. And I tell them, half the time when you're working a 60-hour work week, half the time you're not working effectively anyway. You might as well, when you hit that 3 o'clock in the afternoon slump, take a nap or take a break, take a walk, get out and rejuvenate yourself. I started my company the day I turned 30. That was, I dared dream my ideal, and it was, I have a publishing company. I had no interest in business before then at all. It really surprised me that I even thought of starting a company. I started it with no money, no family support or anything. And right from the beginning, daring to dream my ideal, I said, I'm only going to work when I feel like it. I'm not going to buy into this. I knew by then, by 30, I was old enough to understand the nature of our beliefs, that they're not true in themselves. Many people have very different sets of beliefs than we do, but they become true in our experience if we believe them. So if we believe it takes 60 hours a week to build your own company, that'll be true in our experience. But I said, I'm going to do this experiment. I'm going to only work when I feel like it. And I've created a multi-million-dollar, wonderfully successful publishing company, only working about 20 to 30 hours a week. I only work when I feel like it. I don't do mornings. I don't do Mondays. I come into the office Tuesday afternoon, and there's no place I'd rather be, and I'm really up for whipping through 100 emails and taking care of business. And then as soon as I get tired, I leave.
Have you taken these ideas to corporate officials, possibly in a teaching way, to show them what this can do for their businesses?
Oh yeah, I wrote a book called Visionary Business in the 90s, and quite a bit of corporate types did jump on it, and it still does pretty well. And even the chapter 11 is the essence of my new book, The Magical Path, because even to corporate types, by the time I got into chapter 11, I call that Consider the Mystical and Spiritual Side of Business. Practice your own form of effective magic. That's the 11th chapter of Visionary Business. So even with real business types, I said, one way to look at this is it is a mystical process, this process of creation. We will never understand it, but we can set it in motion. How do we set it in motion? There are simple spiritual tools, you can call them, or magical tools, you can call them. The power of the spoken word, the power of prayer, the power of affirmation, the power of the written word. As far as I'm concerned, those are magical tools. Call them what you will. It all boils down to very simple things that every successful business person knows. You need a simple plan in writing, and you need to keep moving toward that plan.
I like that the book emphasizes a world that works for all. You don't have to look very far to find folks who feel the world is not working for them. Do you see any common threads running through people's issues in that department?
Well, I see there is a movement that's really growing that is really daring to envision a world that works for all. It goes way back many, many years. I remember in the 60s hearing Buckminster Fuller speak, a wonderful visionary and inventor, and he said, and this was 50 years ago now, 40 or 50 years ago, he was saying, we have the technology And we have the resources now to house and feed and heal and educate everyone on the planet. And so the challenge for all of us, the great work for all of us, is to find out how to do that. And he even called it the world game. He said, let's play this game. And the game is, how do we, in a sustainable way that works for 7 generations at least, that works always, that works into the future, in a sustainable way, how do we house and feed and heal and educate everyone on the planet? He was talking about that 40 and 50 years ago.
One final question, then we'll wrap it up. Your path has been and continues to be magical. What kind of magic are you weaving these days? What are your dreams for the future?
I touch on it over and over in my book. I do a very simple form of magic. I do very simple little rituals. I do nothing in a disciplined way. I do very little through the day. In fact, when I first started writing The Magical Path, I thought it'd be a short book because my feeling is that I do very little. I always start the day walking outside and let all thought go, and then start with a prayer where first I find something I'm grateful for that I hadn't thought of before, and I realize my gratitude list is endless. And then I ask for guidance. I do that every morning. Through the day, I often just get quiet, and I do what I call a 3-breath entry that I have over and over in the book, where all you do is just take one breath, and as you exhale, you just feel a wave of relaxation from the top of your head going down through your whole body. Then you take a second breath, and as you exhale, just let all thought go. And you take a third breath, and as you exhale, you just look within. Feel your presence, as Eckhart Tolle calls it. And you realize that inner plane, that is the plane of magical creation. That is the plane of spiritual revelation. That is the world of imagination, you call it, where everything begins. And again, as Eckhart Tolle says in The Power of Now, he's so concise, he said, get the inside right, and the outside will fall into place. And that's the whole process I've discovered works beautifully. You get it right, clearly in your imagination. What do you want? What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of typical day? What does your typical day look like? You get it very clear in your imagination. And then you just ask for guidance on how to create that. And the first step will just appear to you and become obvious and easy to take. You take that, then the next step becomes obvious. It's that simple.
Sounds like you design each day the way you want to see it go, and it goes that way.
Yes, yes. It absolutely goes that way. So I'm always saying it all works. Prayer works, affirmation works, planning works. The only problem is that then the doubts and fears that arise. I think there's 2 essential things we need to create real success in life. First, daring to dream and making a plan. And then second, dealing with all the doubts and fears that come up. Because it's the doubts and fears, the anxieties that will undermine and finally destroy those dreams if we let them. I think the simple way to say it is the universe says yes to every thought in some very mysterious way. And when we say, I want to live the life of my dreams, I want to make it work doing what I love, show me how, the universe says, yes, here's the first step to take. But then if our next thought is, oh, but it's so hard to succeed, so few people succeed, the universe says, yes, it's hard for you with that thought.
We sabotage our own best interests, I guess, with those kinds of thoughts. Yeah. Give us your website and where we can buy the book.
Yes, marcallen.com and newworldlibrary.com.
Of course. Great.
Marc Allen, MarcAllen.com.
Any
all kinds of good stuff out there.
Yeah, any new books, projects, anything coming up on the horizon?
Yes, I do have some live seminars in the Bay Area on marcallen.com. And on the website, I have like a nice free video that's a really good talk. And I have some audios that are really in depth. I have one called The Spiritual Path to Success. It's 45-minute audio. And I have an entire course called Success with Ease. That's 12 downloads and real in depth. It's 8.5 hours.
Hmm. Outstanding. Well, the book is The Magical Path, Creating the Life of Your Dreams in a World That Works for All. Marc Allen, always good to have you here, and I hope we can do it again soon. That would be nice.
Anytime, John. I really appreciate everything you're doing. I really enjoy your website.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and we will keep tabs and talk to you again. Thanks, Marc.
Great. Thank you.
Marc Allen, and we will be linking to Marc's website. You'll be able to find out more about Marc, and of course, it'll take you to his website where you can buy the book, the World Library, or marcallen.com. And we're going to be, as you've noticed today, streaming these interviews whenever we can. Obviously, the logistics when you work from home are a little different, so we're going to give this a shot, but we'll still be doing the show on Blog Talk Radio. I mentioned that to Marc before we got started today. So Fridays on Blog Talk Radio, we'll still be there and doing the show as usual, audio only, of course. And if you don't catch this on Google Hangouts, then we hope you'll go to Blog Talk Radio or to any of the podcast hosts that have the show featured, Chief for Yourself. So it's all good, and it's all there. So anyway, that's all for today. We'll be talking to you again. Be well. I'll talk to you soon.